Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking a truly profound, deeply moving historical and religious narrative drawn straight from reliable Islamic sources. We're going to explore a story of absolute tyranny, unparalleled courage, and a secret that literally defied an empire. It's the kind of narrative that absolutely forces us to question where true power actually lies. We're looking at the incredible legacy of Hazrat Asiya, the Queen of Egypt. And, to really understand her, we need to jump right in and set the scene at the dramatic, heart-stopping conclusion of her journey. Okay, let's dive right into this climax. I want you to picture this vividly, exactly as it's described in the texts. The great Queen of Egypt has just been dragged out from her magnificent, luxurious palaces. She's thrown right into the middle of the blistering, burning sand, humiliated in front of her very own people. Her hands and feet are brutally tied down with wooden pegs, and cruel, piercing whip blows are just raining down on her body. It's a scene of absolute physical devastation. And yet, defying the greatest tyrant of her age, her oppressor, she cries out, "My Lord is Allah."
But here's where the narrative presents a really striking psychological mystery. According to the source texts, even amidst the unbearable pain of those whips, there was only a smile on Asiya's face. Think about that for a second. In all her physical helplessness, she looked right past her tormentors, turned to her Lord, and spoke this beautiful prayer. "My Lord, build for me a house with you in paradise, and save me from Pharaoh and his deeds, and grant me deliverance from the wrongdoing people." She actually found absolute peace during her own execution. As she breathed her last, the texts tell us her Lord showed her her home in paradise. She was basically leaving the palace of disbelief and walking right into the palace of her Lord.
So the crucial point here is understanding exactly who this incredible figure is. Hazrat Asiya was a woman praised by the Holy Prophet among the women of paradise. She was a woman who walked towards her end smiling, holding on to a faith she had kept entirely secret in her heart. But to truly grasp the sheer magnitude of her ending up in that burning sand, we've got to hit rewind. We need to go back to the gilded cage she lived in and look closely at the man she was married to.
And this brings us to Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, living in a massive, magnificent palace right on the banks of the Nile River. Honestly, he was the greatest tyrant of his time. He wasn't just a king. He made this audacious, absolutely terrifying claim to his people, openly declaring, "I am your greatest god." He demanded total, absolute submission. He forced his people to work in horrific conditions, essentially as slaves, and dealt out brutal punishments for the absolute slightest of mistakes. The people just silently obeyed in a state of sheer helplessness, enduring his violence day in and day out.
And this brilliantly illustrates the duality of Asiya's life. While Pharaoh ordered his men to build these lavish platforms in the middle of the river for endless day and night celebrations, filled with echoing laughter, roasted meat, and gleaming golden bowls, a very different hidden reality existed just outside. Now, Asiya was a very special person in that palace. Someone even the cruel Pharaoh respected. But she wasn't deceived, brutalized just outside her walls. Despite all the immense wealth surrounding her, she just couldn't find peace. Then, the inciting incident of this explainer happens. In the dead of night, while in a deep sleep, Pharaoh has a startling, absolutely terrifying dream. A prophecy is delivered directly to him. He's told that the God who created the universe is going to bring forth a son among the children of Israel. And this child is destined to completely destroy Pharaoh's kingdom, tear down his throne, take away his joys, and totally flip the social order, making the Egyptian people slaves to them. It's a vision that threatens his entire constructed reality, the whole shebang.
You can almost feel the sheer internal panic of a tyrant here. Pharaoh wakes up from this dream panting, entirely drenched in sweat. He tosses and turns, completely unable to sleep. And why? Because this prophecy wasn't just a threat to his land. It was a direct challenge to his core claim of being a god. The mere thought that a child would be born to dismantle the cruel system he so meticulously created was enough to literally drive him mad. Was someone even more powerful coming to upend his false reality?
Let's track the rapid, frantic escalation of Pharaoh's paranoia here. He goes from a restless, sweat-drenched night to immediately summoning the city's magicians and astrologers to his court right at dawn. He stands up, tells them the dream, and watches the fear spread across their faces. By morning, they confirm the worst. A boy born to the children of Israel will destroy his kingdom and his religion. Pharaoh's face goes pale, he begins to gasp, and that fear instantly curdles into a blinding rage, setting off a devastating chain of events where he takes horrific action. Out of that blinding rage and total fear of losing his grip on power, Pharaoh issues a truly terrifying decree. Every boy born to the children of Israel shall be killed at birth, but the girls shall be spared. He weaponizes his absolute authority to inflict the ultimate cruelty against his most vulnerable subjects. He actually believes he can just murder his way out of a divine prophecy, attempting to rewrite destiny through sheer, brutal force.
According to the historical texts, from that day forward, life for the mothers of Egypt instantly became a living nightmare. Pharaoh's soldiers were dispatched with this ruthless, cold efficiency. Every single newborn boy was seized from his mother's arms before the child could even learn what his mother smelled like. It was a systematic, calculated reign of terror designed entirely to protect one man's fragile ego and his throne.
You just have to imagine the sheer terror in the streets. The text described this aggressive, violent invasion of the homes of the innocent, doors being violently broken down by soldiers, the absolute shattering of safety for these families. The cruelty was loud, it was sudden, and it was entirely inescapable. The streets filled with the agonizing cries of mothers, and the sky itself echoed with the cries of the innocent. And here is exactly where the narrative shifts back to our central figure. Because these piercing, desperate cries of unimaginable grief, they didn't just vanish into the Egyptian air. No, they tore straight through the thick, heavily guarded walls of Pharaoh's magnificent palace.
Those cries reached Asiya's heart. They lived under the exact same roof, but their internal worlds couldn't have been more different. While Pharaoh was driven by pure fear and blinded by rage, shaking everyone with his terrible cruelty, Asiya was driven by deep mercy. Every cry she heard from outside the palace brought with it the pain of another mother, and it just burned her heart. In these darkest days of oppression, Pharaoh's cruelty only served to push Asiya further and further away from his false power, pushing her to search for the only true power. She recognized that behind all this oppression, a massive unseen plan was at work.
Which brings our narrative full circle, right back to the tragic, incredibly powerful climax in the burning sand. When Asiya's secret faith is finally revealed, Pharaoh desperately tries to assert his physical dominance and his false godhood one last time. Standing over her as she's tied down and whipped, he screams his ultimate threat. "Abandon the religion of Moses. Say that there is no God but Pharaoh, or I will kill you." He relies on literally the only tool he has ever known: violence.
But Asiya has achieved absolute clarity. She looks up at this man who commands massive armies and builds towering monuments, and she presents this ultimate realization and defiance, telling him, "You are only a weak human being, yet you claim to be a god, Pharaoh. By God, I will never deny it." In a single sentence, she completely strips him of all his self-proclaimed divinity. Her secret faith finally overpowers the greatest tyrant of her time. She refuses to deny her Lord, embracing her fate with a smile, fully knowing that her true home awaits her.
So, we've seen a ruler who had all the gold, the armies, and the ability to inflict mass terror, yet was fundamentally terrified of a dream. And we've seen a queen who was stripped of absolutely everything, tortured in the sand, yet smiled because she held a quiet, unwavering faith in her heart. So I'm going to leave you with this thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. If absolute physical power can be entirely defeated by a quiet,